Good morning, students of class 12. Here I am with this video to help you all study and start the syllabus for the section in class 12. When you all were in class 11, as per our syllabus, we had completed 5 poetries, 5 stories, and up till Act 3 in the play The Tempest. Today I am here to start with your poetry section. As per our syllabus for class 12, we start with the first poetry, and the poetry is The Darkling Thrush. It's a poetry written by a very famous English poet Thomas Hardy, and I'll start with a little introduction. The Darkling Thrush, basically the title of the story is the word darkling. Darkling has a historical importance in poetry. The word goes back to the mid 15th century. This particular word darkling, it goes back to the 15th century. The word darkling corresponds to two meanings in the poetry that we are doing, and the meanings are in the dark and obscure. Obscure is when something is not seen properly. The word darkling means in darkness or becoming dark. The speaker in the poem is able to see the landscape. Landscape is the features of land surrounding him. But the sun is weakening because it is twilight. The sun is setting. He is unable to focus and unable to see the landscape properly. So that is his meaning. The day is ending and the sun is setting, making the twilight desolate. Desolate is like unhappy, sad, gloomy. Here I'll start the poetry stanza by stanza. Like in class, I would read the stanza and explain the meaning in simple English. So here I go. I leant upon a capricious gate when frost was spectre grey and winter dregs made desolate. The poet is seen leaning on a gate which opens onto a wood. Now the poet, that is Thomas Hardy, in the beginning only is shown to be leaning. Leaning is taking the support of a gate. This gate and the background to the gate is the woods. His house is near the woods. The frost has made the landscape as grey as a ghost. The frost has made the surroundings grey. In English, especially in poetry, colors have a significant role. Grey signifies gloom, desolate, sorrow. So the frost has made the landscape as grey as a ghost. As the day comes to an end, its eyes, the day's eyes, that is the sun, is slowly but surely closing. And as we know, when the sun sets from a bright sunny day, it starts to become dark and darker. Ultimately, the sun sets, it becomes night. So, the second stanza I go. The weakening eye of day, the tangled vine stems scored the sky, like strings of broken lyres, and all mankind that haunted nigh had sought their household fires. Now the stems of the climbing shrubs are small climbing trees, grass, that are taking the support of other plants to go up. Now these stems are compared to the strings of a lyre. Lyre is an old musical instrument. It was a stringed instrument. Like the guitar of today, the lyre was played previously. And these stems, the climbing creepers, are compared to the strings of a lyre. Then, the speaker says that while he is outside while he's standing leaning on the gate of his house, out in this barren land, out in this cold land. The rest of the world is comfortably settled inside. The rest of the world are within the confines of their home, in front of fireplaces, in the warmth of their home, while he is out lonely, sad, in this desolate environment. Then the third stanza. The land's sharp features seem to be the century's corpse outlent. His crisps the cloudy canopy, the wind its death lament. The poet refers to the sharp outline of the winter landscape, that is the surrounding land features, which appears to the poet like the sharp feature of a corpse. Now the corpse is a human body. When a person dies, the body is referred to as a corpse. So this landscape is compared to a human in a dead form. The cloudy sky seems like the century's tomb. Tomb is a grave. And the winter wind, its death song, the wind that is blowing outside, is like the song played in the church when a person dies. The poet now refers to the seeds of spring, which are shrunken hard and dry. Now the seeds will mature, the seed will germinate and grow to new plants. This shows how the seeds get ripe in the size, become hard and dry during the winter season. The poet now says that every spirit on the earth seems to have become as lifeless as the sun itself. In the next stanza, the third stanza, the poet, now his attitude, his feelings are changed. At once a voice arose among the bleak twigs overhead, in a foolhardy even song of joy illuminated. Now there is a change in the tone of the poem. The poet now suddenly hears the sound or the song of an old thrush. Thrush is a songbird. It's not found in our country, usually abroad it is found there. And he hears the sound of this old thrush. It is so beautiful, so powerful, that listening to this song only, listening to the sound of this bird, his entire opinion about life changes. Then he goes on to say, an aged thrush, frail, gaunt and small, in bliss beruffed plum, had chosen thus to fling his soul unto the growing gloom. That is, it is an aged, this thrush that is here out singing is an old, withered old bird, yet it knows his end has come, but it is singing this song with such passion, with such light heartedness, that the poet, listening to the sound of this bird, gets a lot of energy in himself. In the evening, the bird is aged, trial, perhaps facing its own imminent end. The bird has reached its pinnacle, its own end. Yet, nearing death, it has still the vigor, still the energy to sing powerful songs. And listening to this bird sing, Thomas Hardy attitude changes. So the next stanza, the last stanza, so little cause of caroling of such ecstatic sound was written on a terrestrial things afar on night around. The poet is filled with a sense of life. Listening to the sound of this bird, he is filled with a sense of life and hope beyond by the bird. The bird has given him this sense of life. But unable to comprehend what terrestrial things could make the bird so happy. Now he is unable to understand the reason why this bird is happy, how it is happy, why it is happy, what brings its happiness. He is not able to understand. And that is what he is trying to fathom. That is what he is trying to find out. How come a bird that is near its death is happy and gay, singing so brightly, so soundly. Then he goes on to write that I could think they tremble through. Yep. Okay? That I could think they tremble through his happy good night air, some blessed hope whereof he knew, and I was unaware. Here the poet says he cannot experience what happiness is in the bird, but he can only surmise, he can only understand or think that it could be because of certain religious reasons also. And then he says that the poet now personifies hope. The main thing of this poetry is hope, that we should never lose hope. He is a person who wants to inspire others to have hope in themselves, hope in this world. So the poet now personifies hope as if it were a human being. He is giving hope a personification. Personification is a instrument used in poetry where human beings' attitude is given to inanimate objects. Here then he says that human giving hope he to mankind. It is an indirect reference. He indirectly refers to Jesus Christ even. Like Jesus Christ was born, he gave hope to mankind. He gave hope to human beings. His death, even though he died, gave hope to us, and we live in that hope. So he is trying to inspire human beings that don't lose hope in life. If that thrush, old, gaunt, near its death, could have the power to sing such a beautiful song, to be able to sing so sweetly even when it is near its own death, why should human beings with such intellect, with such senses that we all possess, why should we have no hope in ourselves? So the main thing in this poetry is he wants us to have hope. So my dear children, it's just a very brief way of me making you try to make you understand. It's also good that you have your books at home. You all know which poetry I am teaching, from where I am teaching. You can listen to this lecture, listen to this explanation. After some time, go back to your books. You have your workbooks with you all. Try to understand it better. Whenever school opens out, I'll be there to explain it to you all personally in class. So there should be no problem. For now, I just hope you all are indoors in the confines of your homes, staying safe. Also, advise your parents, if it's not important, they should also remain indoors. So with this, I'll end today's lecture and hope to see and to meet you all tomorrow or the next day. Thank you.